Hello and welcome. This is going to be a quick tutorial on Player X-Ray. Player X-Ray is an automated note-taking application exclusive to DriveHUD. This will essentially automatically write any notes about your opponents for you while you play. And this video tutorial is going to go over how to get the most out of Player X-Ray in the least amount of time. It's a very simple application. You can run it within just a couple clicks, and it has a sophistication where you can modify and edit it to meet whatever needs you have. First of all, once you have Player X-Ray loaded, which you load from the apps menu in DriveHUD and installed apps, you'll see the run screen, which we're currently on. Now, if you already have data in your DriveHUD database, you'll want to run Player X-Ray from this screen one time. Once you do this once, and you have Player X-Ray enabled under settings here to take notes, auto enable notes, you won't have to run anything from this run screen again unless you decide to delete all your notes, maybe create new profiles and rerun. But we'll get to that later. But the first time you want to go ahead and run Player X-Ray either by all notes, by note, or by profile. I'd recommend running by profile. If you click on by profile, you'll get a list of the current profiles here. So if you're mainly a micro stakes player, small, mid stakes, high stakes, you just highlight, select one of these profiles and click start. If you mainly only play tournaments, you click this. All notes will apply, or sorry, most notes will apply to cash games and tournaments, but there are some notes that are specific to cash games and some that are specific to tournaments. And we'll get how to do those later. Now, you would run or select the by note option if, for example, after you ran a bunch of notes, you created some of your own notes and you just wanted to run only that note for your entire database. Then you would select this option. Again, just highlight which note you want to run, either pre-flop, flop, turn, or river. And once you've selected it, hit start. And the final option is all notes. So every single note that exists in Player X-Ray, no matter regardless of stakes or tournaments or cash games, you can run them all, which is also a good option. But like I said, I'd recommend just to run by profile your first time. Depending on your database size, this will take some time, so I would recommend doing this when you're not looking to play immediately. Either do it before you're ready to head off it to bed. About a 2 GB database size will, depending on your system, will take anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half to run. So, and I kind of calculate that in. Again, once you run this one time, you don't have to run it again. But it will take some time to run all the notes because it's going to go through every single player in your database. Um, Once you do that, it will be set to take notes and it'll automatically do those while you play your game. So it'll do that throughout your sessions from that point forward. There's nothing else literally that you need to do once you run this once. So that's the run screen, and now we're going to go to the major engine of Player X-Ray, which is in our notes menu here. In the notes menu, it's going to give you a complete list of all the default notes that currently exist in Player X-Ray, and they're going to be sorted by pre-flop action, flop, turn, and river. If you select any of the notes here on the left-hand side just by clicking and selecting, on the right-hand side, you're going to get a list of all the filters that are set to create that note. So you'll be able to see what is currently checked and unchecked in order to make this note apply. If there's something you want to change about the note, you can just simply click or unclick any of the options here. And I'm not going to go by every single section here because it's pretty straightforward. It's also covered in the manual and more in depth. But if there is something you wanted to apply, change a filter for, like you just wanted this particular filter to apply to only heads up, then you would uncheck these other options. Now the note will only apply to that. And an important note is anything you do change here will automatically save. So it's very important to note. Again, the filters are sorted by general, whole cards, and then the display note name. If there's specific hand groups that are selected, you'll see them here and they'll be highlighted in this purple bluish color. If it's in gray, it's currently not selected. So you can change any of these if you wanted to add or take away some of these hands. You could change this. You could select all, select none, and then there's quick options here too to add groupings of hands like all pocket pairs and things like that. But if you click that, you have to manually go through and remove them. But this is to turn on and off specific hand groups. Pretty straightforward. The display note is just the name of the filter as it's going to show when it comes up in your notes section in your hand. So when you mouse over the player X-ray icon on your table while you're playing, this will be the name that it'll display so you know what the note is about. If you click include board here, have this option checked, that will show the note, the player's hand that they had, and what the board looked like. So if it went to the flop or it went to the turn or all the way to the river, it'll have that hand along with the entire board. So there's some notes that you will want that, and there's some that aren't really relevant. If you want that option, you click here. Under advanced mode, this is a bulk of a lot of the more complex part of the filters. And again, this is all covered in the manual, but so I'm going to go over this very quickly here. The actions filter is sorted by what action is facing you or hero. So you have to look at it in terms of the actions that the opponent is going to be taking. Sorry, not so I said facing, but it's actually going to be taking. So, for instance, if you wanted to do a check raise on the flop, you could click flop here. Your first action would be check, and then the second action would be raise. Pretty straightforward. Or if I wanted to bet, and then I was anticipating that if someone bet and raised, I would 3-bet the flop. Then I would put bet and then raise, and then I can add percentage of the pot if I want to. It'll default to 0, meaning there's no extra filter there. But if I wanted to make the bet a specific ratio of the pot, like anything that was 25% or under, or over bets that were 100% or over, or something to that nature, you can do that. And you can do that for each of the streets. The second part here under filters, this is going to be a list of all of the available filters, and again, for the note, it'll show which ones are currently applying to the note. To add any additional filters, you can just double click from the left hand side here and it'll add it to the selected filter section, or you can highlight and add or remove from these arrows here. So if I want to remove this back out of my filter, I just click here. If I wanted to add it, I could also click here. I can also just double click as well. But all this is sorted by pre-flop, flop, turn, river, and then some miscellaneous actions as well. So again, these are covered in the manual. They're pretty straightforward though, so I'm not going to go into great detail about those. The next tab is hand values. This is going to relate to anything if you're looking for a specific type of hand, which is on the flop, turn, and river. So this would only apply to our filters that are here. So let's say check, raise, withdraws. Our hand values here are going to be selected as just any specific kind of flush draw. So all of these are going to be selected. Now to add some to here, you just unclick any hand value, and then you just click. And if you want to select more than one, you just hold down your control key and then click, left click, and then do the same thing if you want to undo them. But you just select, and if you want to change it back to any hand value, means anything that applies for that flop, turn, or river hand value, that'll apply. And again, everything is listed. It's very straightforward. One pair, pocket pair, that's an over pair, second pair, top kicker, so on and so on, trips, sets, everything like that's all listed here. So you just click and apply anything that you want for flop turn in river. It can just be for one street, it can be for all streets. So you could set filters that someone flops a pair but then turns two pair or a better hand or something like that, and so on. The last filter here is by board texture. Again, this is flop, turn, and river relevant. This particular one on the flop, check raise withdraws set to anything. If I wanted to set it to only on monotone boards, so it's uh, three of one suit, I could set that. Or especially for Omaha hands, number of open-ended straight draws or gut shots, or you could set to an exact texture where I want it just to be, let's say, like a very coordinated board, like 8, 9, 10. Then I could select that and just say, okay, I want 8, and so on. So, um, or you could, if you just wanted to look at just low, like a low flop, for example, you could select highest card, and you could say the highest card on here is 7, so you know it's going to be a very low kind of board, or um, you know, somewhere more in the middle, so on and so on. So these are, again, are all pretty straightforward, and they apply to the flop, turn, and river. This is covered again in more detail in the manual. I want to go back to this left-hand side here. Now, to create a new filter, um, we just we can select from anywhere, and I would suggest just selecting from a pre-flop area. Click Add, um, create a new filter. My caps lock is on, and click Save. This is going to create a new filter down here, and now I run through and I set up all the filters I want for this test filter, whatever it is I wanted to create. Say this is only going to be for cash games only, and only going to be in situations where someone 3-bet from the button, and so on. So I would set all those filters that I wanted for that situation. I would make sure I named the filter appropriately. I did my included board cards if I wanted to, and that would be my filter. And then if I added this later, I could again just go back to my run menu and just run just a specific note. So it'll add it additionally to all of the X-ray notes that it's already created. It'll add this new filter as well, this new note. If I wanted to go back later and edit the name, how it's showing up on here, I just click edit. If I wanted to delete it, just click delete, or export this to be able to share it with somebody else. Just click export, and it'll allow you to do that. Um, and the other main thing here is I can, and I'll go ahead and delete this real quick. The other main thing is if I want to create groups of types of filters, like for example, this is showing as 3-bet groups, so these are all notes that apply to 3-bets and tournaments as well. When I click add, I can say I want to create a set of 4-bet notes. Then I select group here, and it'll create a new group, so that once I add new filters, I can apply it under this. So I could actually drag and drop and move some of these onto the 4-bet section. Um, so this creates a whole new group that you can start adding notes into, and it'll create a sub menu under those. Just as you add more notes, this will just make it easier to kind of be able to sort through and track. So that is the notes menu overview quickly. So that's the quick overview of the note creation and note editing process. The next major section of Player X-Ray is the profile section. On the left hand side here, you'll see a list of all the default profiles that are included in Player X-Ray. Profiles are just groups of notes that you create under a specific grouping. Uh, to edit any of the profiles, just select one of them here on the left. On the right hand side, under this notes section, will be a complete list of all the notes that are included by default in Player X-Ray and any notes that you created on your own. So anything that you have created or is listed as an available note in Player X-Ray will be listed here, and it'll be broken up by preflop, flop, turn, and river categories. On the right hand side here are all the selected notes that are part of this profile. So in this example, I have microstakes selected, so all of the notes that would run if I ran by profile from my run menu are listed here under my selected notes. Now if I want to edit this profile, if I want to make a few changes to it, there's some notes that I have or some new notes that I created that I want to add to this profile. I would just highlight it. From the left hand side here of the notes section, I would just either highlight and click this right arrow key to add it to my selected notes, or just double click and it'll add it into my selected notes section here. Conversely, if there was a note in here that I really didn't like, that I didn't want to run, I would just highlight it, double click, or select it and hit the left arrow key, and then it'll remove it. So if there's a new profile, if I'm going to start from scratch, there's, say I wanted to make one just specific for heads up games, I could do that by just clicking add. I could create, let's say, test heads up, name it, click save. And now, again, I'll have a complete list of all the notes that are available. And under selected notes, we have none currently selected. So we want to add some to our profile. So we can just double click some of these here. Or again, you could just highlight and add here. If there was something I added that I didn't like, just double click and remove. Once I have all the notes that I want for that profile, it's automatically saved. There's nothing I need to do. I can just go back to my run menu and run this specific profile, and then it'll just run the notes that I have under my selected notes. I want to change the name just so I give it a better name. I can recognize it. I just click edit, change the name, save. If I created one I really wasn't going to use or didn't like, I could just click delete, and that's basically it. So last thing to cover here is the settings menu. I'll go over this quickly. Enable auto notes is checked by default. This basically allows Player X-Ray to automatically create notes and add them into DriveHood as you're playing. If you don't want that to happen, you just uncheck this and disable. It will also give you an option of doing the auto notes by a specific profile that you've created or all notes. It defaults to all notes, so if you selected a profile that you've done under run and you want to stick with the consistency of that profile, make sure you come here and select what that profile is, so then it will only apply notes that are within that profile. Take notes on hero. This is disabled by default if you enable this. Your hero, so any notes that apply to you, X-Ray will create. Some people like to have that, but usually it's pretty unnecessary. You should know how you play, and people aren't going to have the same kind of notes information on you, so it's not super relevant, but some people like it. Enable advanced logging, you should not have checked unless support has asked you to do so. Create notes for hands since a specific date. So if you wanted to run a profile and you just wanted to run it from X date, you would come here, select this option, select the date, then run your profile, and it'll only run the hands from that date on. Delete notes older than. You can select, I did say there was really, old notes that you didn't feel like applied anymore. From, let's say, 2 years ago or something, you'd set that date, click delete notes, and it'll wipe out anything from that date on. It'll keep all the newer stuff. And the last option here, delete all notes. This would be used if you ran a profile and you didn't really like how the notes were coming out. You would just click delete all notes. It'll wipe out all the player X-ray notes that have been created. Anything that you manually created as a note, it will not delete, just the player X-ray notes. So this is handy if you're kind of experimenting and adding some custom notes and some custom profiles. And you can wipe them out. It doesn't take very long to do, only a couple minutes, and then rerun the profile. So that is our quick and dirty overview of Player X-Ray.